Again, our breaking news, two sources now telling CNN the Saudi government is prepared to admit that missing journalist Jamal Khashoggi was indeed killed during an interrogation gone wrong after he entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul almost 2 weeks ago and never came back out. Now, the question tonight, what will President Trump do about this? On the world stage, he seems to avoid a tough stance with certain countries. Take a look at these key moments from this weekend's 60 Minutes interview, starting with the president talking about why he won't cancel the Saudis' weapons deal because it would cost jobs.
Would you consider imposing sanctions as a bipartisan group of senators have proposed?
Well, it depends on what the sanction is. I'll give you an example. They are ordering military equipment. Everybody in the world wanted that order. Russia wanted it. China wanted it. We wanted it. We got it.
Do you agree that Vladimir Putin is involved in assassinations, in poisonings?
Probably he is, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't...
Probably?
Probably, but I rely on them. It's not in our country.
Okay, what about North Korea? We're talking about
Well, I consider it a, so far, great achievement. Look,
When you say so far?
It's always so far until everything's done. You know, deals are deals, okay? Whether it's a real estate deal or a retail deal, it doesn't matter.
Well, earlier tonight, I talked with Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders to get his take on the Saudi situation as well as the Trump doctrine overseas. Senator Sanders, this new reporting that the Saudis are preparing a claim that will acknowledge Khashoggi's death was the result of an interrogation that went wrong. I mean, if that ends up being the narrative they put forward, do you buy that?
Interrogation that went wrong. Well, it tells me, Anderson, that if the Saudi embassy invites you for a little discussion, you may not want to go there. I don't know what that means. It sounds to me like they killed this guy who was a dissident and a critic of the regime.
You know, on 60 Minutes last night, the president vowed severe punishment if Saudi Arabia is behind Khashoggi's disappearance. Do you think he would actually follow up with that? I mean, if the Saudi government did in fact direct this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's what he said yesterday. God knows what he will say tomorrow. The president and Jared Kushner are very tight with the Saudi regime. And I have little doubt that the United States, at least the Trump administration, would do everything they can to protect the Saudis. In my view, we have got to rethink our arms deals, the sale of huge amounts of weapons to Saudi Arabia. I think if, in fact, it turns out what I believe to be true, is that Khashoggi was killed by the Saudis, it requires some sanctions, and it requires a fundamental rethinking of U.S.-Saudi relations.
The president has, up until now, given the Saudis, obviously, the benefit of the doubt, saying they're vehemently denied any involvement, that rogue killers could have been the ones behind this. It's interesting because he does seem to have a public history, at least, of believing denials, whether it's, well, Roy Moore said, you know, he didn't do anything. People say they didn't do anything. That seems to be a kind of his go-to response often.
It's convenient denials. Putin said, you recall when he was in Helsinki, when Trump was in Helsinki with Putin, and Putin said, we had nothing to do, no involvement in trying to sabotage U.S. elections. Well, every intelligence agency in the United States government said otherwise. And then Trump, after his discussion with Putin, says, Mr. Putin told me they had no involvement. And I believe him. Well, you know, he is now a great, friend of Kim Jong-un in North Korea, one of the worst autocrats and dictators in the world. He loves the guy, Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. I think this speaks, Anderson, to the fact that we have a president who has very strong authoritarian tendencies, who likes strong men all over the world. And we are seeing those authoritarian tendencies right here in the United States, where he attacks the media as an enemy of the people. It's the president of the United States. First Amendment rights, that's what media is about. Attacks an independent judiciary, is working hard for voter suppression. So I think of the many concerns that I have about Trump and his tax breaks for billionaires and his trying to throw people off of health insurance, his movement toward an authoritarian type society and support for authoritarians all over the world should be of concern to every American who believes in democracy.
If there is a Trump doctrine, I mean, you saw in the 60 Minutes interview, it seems like he is willing to look or overlook moral outrages, whether it's the Russian meddling in the election or Putin's alleged involvement in assassinations and poisonings, Kim Jong-un's human rights abuses. It doesn't seem like that this president or this administration has that vision of America as, you know, they were critical of Obama for not believing in American exceptionalism. It doesn't seem like they have a vision of America as being somehow different than the rest of the world.
Well, worse than many of the leading countries in the world. It saddens me very much to see all over the world. They do a poll, they do international polls, and they ask people all over the world, what do you think about the United States of America? Well, we used to be very, very high up. People said, we love the United States. We respect the United States. We want to come to the United States. And now that international feeling, that approval has plummeted under Trump because people see a regime, an administration right here in the United States that is not standing up for what has historically been what the United States is supposed to be about, and that is support for democracy, support for human rights, support for the oppressed all over the world.
Senator Sanders, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Anderson.